Where else would you rather be? I'm Paul Clifford, CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association. Welcome to the People of Penn State. Each week on the podcast, you can expect to hear the voices of Penn Staters talking about what they're passionate about, and you can expect to feel the pride and the power of the Penn State network. Well, speaking of pride and power, today's guest, we're going to be talking to wrestling great and executive director and head coach of the Lehigh Valley Wrestling Club, Kerry McCoy. Kerry is a two-time U.S. Olympian. He's an Olympic coach. He was a two-time NCAA champion. He was the head wrestling coach at the University of Maryland and at Stanford, as well as an assistant at Penn State and at Lehigh. In 2014, Kerry was inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, and in 2018, Penn State recognized him as a Distinguished Alumni Award recipient. He currently serves as the first vice president of USA's Wrestling's board of directors and the vice president and president of the Black Wrestling Association and HBCU Wrestling Initiative and their board of directors, respectively. Kerry lives in Coopersburg, Pennsylvania, with his wife, Abby, and their children, Gabriel and Amelia. I'm excited to welcome Olympic hero Kerry McCoy to the podcast. Kerry, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for that great intro.
Yeah, I want to get into it's, the Olympics comes around every 4 years. And so we've been having some Olympic themed guests, right? And certainly your name was on top of the list. But before we get to talking about the Olympics, you grew up in Long Island. Tell the story about how you became a Penn Stater.
That's a great story. So I really had no idea about Penn State growing up. Ironic enough, there were a few other people that graduated from high school that went to Penn State, but just in my area, there wasn't a big connection out of state. Not many kids went to, quote unquote, big time athletics. So I really had no clue. And actually, one of the kids that was on our rival high school team was being recruited by Penn State. And since we were rivals for so long and we were friends, he thought it'd be cool if we could go to school together. So he actually told the Penn State coaches about me, and they came to watch him wrestle at the same time in our duel. And that's how we connected. And that's how I first got turned on. But I really had no desire, no plan, no thought of going to Penn State. But just through the recruiting process, I got to know the coaches and I got to know the guys on the team, and just recognizing that Penn State is a place where I can achieve my academic and athletic goals. One of those goals, pursuing World and Olympic championships. And, it just ended up being the best place for me. And so, it was a pretty non-traditional path, I would say. But, thank goodness to my buddy Jason Kraft for opening the door.
Yeah. And so you come to Penn State, right? And you crack the lineup as a 190-pounder. You finish as a national qualifier. But your first couple of years here at Penn State seemed like it was a learning period for you, right? Your overall record was 150-18, but over your last 3 years, you only lost once on the way to 3 Big Ten championships, 3-time All-American, 2-time national championship. I can go on and on. Hodge Trophy winner. I want to just hear your thoughts about what the difference between your first year and then the rest of your career at Penn State was.
Yeah, so learning curve is a very nice way of putting it. I appreciate that. My first year, I got there and I had a ton of support. My coaches, my workout partners, the alumni, the fans of the program. So it was a tough turn. It was the first year for Penn State in the Big Ten. And we just, I went out there and tried my best, and some went my way, some didn't. But, so I always talk about that. People ask, like, what was the biggest change? And I say, God put some incredible people in my life and my career to help me to reach that status, to do what I needed to do. And then, after my first year, I kind of made a pact, and I said, I didn't like the feeling of losing. I'm a kind of a sore loser. So I said, I'm never going to lose another college match. And that's a big statement for someone that just lost 17 matches in that first year. But, it was the idea of setting that huge goal and then working every day to achieve that goal, and then using the people that God put in my life and the resources that I had at Penn State and throughout the country to really maximize that opportunity. So it was really just a blessing to be able to have so many great people around me to help me achieve that. And, every time I would do something, every time I look, I had someone there that would, okay, let me help you with this, or let's go do this, or let's go do that. So I had a lot of people that helped me along the way to get there.
Talk a little bit about your decision to bump up to the heavyweight division. I mean, you wrestled 190, right? And again, that would make you a smaller heavyweight, right? Going up against guys who are as much as 280, 285, right? Talk about the decision to make that jump.
Yeah, so it wasn't really a defined decision. It kind of just unraveled. Maybe unraveled is not the right word, but just kind of happened through circumstance. So my sophomore year, I totally planned on wrestling 190 again. I was coming out of practice through the summer and in the beginning of the fall. My weight was down. I was feeling good, and I had a few people that I wanted to wrestle again after that freshman year. So my plan was to wrestle 190, and the way that the process kind of started was, so we had our wrestle-offs one weekend. The next weekend, there was an international tournament. It's called the Sunkist Open, and it was out in Arizona. And then the weekend after that was our first competition. So I asked my coaches, because I was wrestling at 100 kilos, 220 pounds in freestyle. So for me to get down to 190 for our wrestle-offs and then to compete at 220 the next weekend and then go back down to 190 for our first competition, I just, I didn't want to have my body roller coastering that early. So I asked my coaches if I could wrestle off at heavyweight. And back then it was, it was part of the wrestle off process was to make the team, but it was also a showcase for the team. I mean, everyone on the team, it was a tournament in Rec Hall. Everyone got to wrestle. So our fans and supporters got a, early glimpse of every member of the team. So I wanted to participate in the event. So I asked my coach if I could wrestle off at heavyweight and then go 220 and then make 190 for the competition. So they agreed with that. So we wrestled off, and I won the wrestle off, and close matches. And then I went out and I competed in the event. And then between that wrestle off and the tournament out in Arizona, the other heavyweight, he got injured, so he wasn't going to be healthy to be able to compete in that first event. So I, the coaches say, hey, we'll just stay up at heavyweight for this event. And I ended up doing well. And then the next weekend, he was still battling the injuries. So they said, stay up. And next thing you know, 3 or 4 weeks in, I was undefeated and I was doing well. So my coach said, just keep eating, stay big. And that's how I went to. So my plan was to go back to 190, but God had a different plan for us.
That's a message that not a lot of wrestlers get to hear, right? Keep eating, stay big. This is the People of Penn State. I'm Paul Clifford. I'm joined by the 1997 Hodge Trophy winner and 2-time Olympian, Kerry McCoy. Kerry, before we leave Penn State and move on to some of the things that you've done later in your career, talk about your experience on campus, right? It is so easy for student athletes to come in, be really focused on their sport, and like for a wrestler, right, to spend all of their time in Rec Hall, right? Still going to class and getting the work done in the classroom. But, there's so much that goes on campus that if student athletes aren't intentional about getting involved, it's something that they end up regretting, right? Because they see other students doing it, but they were so focused on everything going on in Rec Hall. You were able to balance both being an academic standout, an athletic standout, but also a leader on campus. Talk about your experience.
Yeah, again, I always go back to, we were very fortunate to have some great people around in the program, but also outside of the program. And, that was another reason why I chose Penn State, because there were so many opportunities to get involved in many areas. The leadership, the student advocacy, the opportunity for student athlete advisory. So just a lot of things to be able to, give me something else besides just in and out of a wrestling at Rec Hall. So being involved, I had a lot of opportunities to connect with people in various areas, student government, campus advocacy, the interfraternity council, Pan Atlantic Council. So, through the different leadership organizations, it really gave me an opportunity to explore and expand my experience. So, again, like you said, as athletes, a lot of times we're focused so much on our sport that we don't have time for much else, which is, that's fine. But if you have the desire and you have the want to go and do some other things, there were so many things that were offered. And I just remember, being over in the USG office, spending time with my friends and getting to know what kind of policies and procedures were being put in place for the benefit of our students. And, with the fraternity life and being able to, have relationships with people that are, in the leadership and the interfraternity council and the Pan Atlantic Council, and find out how they're making decisions to try to make campus safer and more welcoming for all students, in that vein. So just having that desire and having that opportunity to be involved with these organizations really gave me something different. So, we'd spend time at practice, spend time with our guys, then I can go across campus and spend time also affecting and experiencing different areas in life that really gave me that full experience that, I can look back on and have a lot of connections in the sport, in athletics, but also have a lot of connections out of it. And that's really something that's special because, when the old athletes get together, we talk about the war stories of the battles that we had, but then you can also talk about, hey, remember this time that this happened on campus and we got together and this advocacy group got together, or, this policy that made a difference for all the future Penn Staters. So I have the benefit of being able to experience and talk about both of those sides.
Yeah, you and we have a mutual friend in Nick Lee. And I think Nick put it great when he said, it wasn't until I got out of rec hall and started interacting with other students that I realized that there are other students on campus working just as hard as I am, but they're doing it in their student orgs, they're doing it in the performing arts. And it wasn't until he kind of got outside of his bubble that he realized, all right, there's a ton of people getting after it like I get after it for Penn State, just in very different ways. Yeah.
And it's amazing because those things, obviously everybody has a purpose, and being able to keep the wheels turning at a great university like Penn State, it takes a lot. And, as students get involved, because they're the ones that those opportunities are going to benefit most. So the more students get involved, the more student involvement, it really helps the next person, next generation up, because it's like, yeah, we understand what's going on and we want to make sure we make it better for everyone. So yeah, Nick's a great guy and he's done some great things on the mat, and I know he's gotten really engaged off the mat. So it's just awesome when us wrestlers can be looked at more than just being people with weird ears.
So following your time in Happy Valley, you spent the next decade representing the U.S. on national teams, including being a two-time Olympian. Share with us your Olympic experience. What was that like?
Oh my gosh, it's I have a hard time putting into words, just because with sport in general, right, there's so many ups and downs, and it's really embracing that it's not who you are, it's what you do. And that's something that is really captured with the Olympic experience, because yeah, we all want to be gold medalists, we all want to win, and we want to do get on that podium, but just that pursuit of something bigger than just a logo on your chest, but representing yourself, representing your God, representing your country, is something that is so special. And obviously the Olympic Games only happens every 4 years, and for wrestling, the opportunity, you only send one per weight class, so having the opportunity to be able to represent our country and get there multiple times is amazing. So but what really encapsulated, so the hard work, the dedication, all that remains the same for anybody that wants to be successful. And when it came to my Olympic experience, I was so focused, the first game, so focused on being, winning a gold medal and just going out there and wrestling at the high level. And I get to the games in Sydney, and we're all excited. We're going to the opening ceremonies. And this is really, I guess, again, having a tough time putting in words, but just this experience when we're getting ready in the staging for the opening ceremonies, and there are professional athletes, multimillionaires, NBA stars, professional tennis players, track. Just all these athletes from all these different backgrounds, all these different experiences, and they're all wearing the same uniform as me. right? They all have the same outfit as I have. And it's like, yeah, we're representing Team USA under the Olympic flag. And you walk into the stadium and there are 100,000 people in the opening ceremony, and they're just screaming and cheering and all. And you're like, that's for me. That's for us. That's for this thing that we call the Olympic Games. And that's when it really punctuated for me. Just like, yes, obviously you want to go out there and you want to compete to your best ability. You want to have an eye for a gold medal, but the Olympic Games is so much more than just the competition. And having that experience to go through and see that and really understand that it's not just about going out there to try to get a medal, but it's about representation. It's about going out there and all the hard work and dedication you're going to go and get to put it on display for, the world to see. And it's just amazing. So I just remember walking into that, and it's really funny because you walk into it, and like I said, there's 100,000 people in the stadium screaming, cheering, all the other, and we're towards the end. So, United States went in toward the end. So a bunch of the other countries were already out there, and you go in and for, it seemed like 5 minutes, but it's like a split second, everything went silent. And it was like, you're in this like slow motion, you see in a movie, like the screen where everything slows down and it's in slow motion, and then boom, it comes right back and you get all that energy and excitement, and just an incredible deal. So the opening ceremonies really capsulizes the full Olympic experience, that it's about going out there and representing yourself, representing your family, representing your country, but it's not just about the sport and the game that you're going to play. It's about, that experience of being, in that event that's been around for such a long time and just means so much. So, the pursuit, the hard work, dedication, number of people that supported me along the way, all the early mornings, the late nights, the travel, and all that stuff comes to a head right at that experience. And you realize, yes, I did this for this reason. And, I have the fortunate opportunity to experience this for everything it is.
Kerry, who was your favorite athlete that you met during the Olympics from another sport?
Oh man, I've got to put me on a spot there. So I would say that a couple people, and I don't get starstruck very often, I should say, but I got an opportunity to meet Venus and Serena Williams, and this is early, in 2000, so this is earlier in their careers. But to see them, Tim Duncan, I got to spend a little time with him, and Allen Houston, who had played for the Knicks, he was in there. And I think one of the funny things was this is, a year or two before Patrick Ewing was going to retire, and Allen was playing for the Knicks. I remember walking and just saying, hey, what do you think Patrick's going to do next year? Having this like high level professional sports conversation with, an NBA all-star and walking in. So that was a pretty cool experience. And we got to meet Martina Navratilova. So those are people that just got to see, but really, spending time with my teammates, that was probably the most exciting time, just because it was my first team. So we had some veterans on the team. Melvin Douglas was there, and he was a couple-time Olympian, and he was a big mentor of mine. And, we had Terry Brand was on the team, and Lincoln McIlravy. And, these are guys that I'd known forever. Obviously, Brandon Slay, we were teammates through a bunch of world teams. And so just to be able to get and connect with those guys, Sammy Henson ended up getting a silver medal. Lincoln McIlravy got a bronze. And it was just like, to be able to be with these guys and see them reach their full potential and maximize their opportunity and go out there. And obviously everyone remembers Rulon Gardner, winning the gold medal in the epic match against the unbeatable Alexander Karelin. So really experiencing that with our teammates was really something that will stay with me forever.
So I've been following a number of Olympians on Instagram, and they have been doing their gear hauls, if you will, right? I saw the swimmers got 2 suitcases full of Team USA gear. So was it just a hat and a T-shirt that they gave you when you were at that point, or was it the same kind of swag that the athletes get now?
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't know now how much, but they took care of us for sure. you got two suitcases full of stuff, and I mean, they basically outfit you so you have enough clothes. If you accessorize properly, you have enough clothes to make the entire 2 weeks while you're there without having to wear something again. But in 2000, Adidas was our sponsor, and then Ralph Lauren did the ceremony uniforms and things like that. And then I think 2004, same thing. Adidas was the apparel sponsor for Team USA. I think Nike does it. In 08, Nike was a sponsor, and I think they've been the last couple of years. And Ralph Lauren still does the higher end stuff. So I would assume that Nike probably outfits a little bit more than Adidas did. I think that's one of the reasons, negotiate a contract is how you're going to best support the athletes. So, but yeah, and just even so it's even funny to say it. So back in 2000, obviously smartphones were not a thing as they are now. So we got a little candy bar phone that you could buy credits to send text messages. You could call people, but back then it was cheaper to send text messages than actually call people. And they gave us, we had a little mini camera that was, it could record video up to like 2 minutes of video and take digital pictures that were, I don't know, like 80p or something, but, you got that stuff. And I remember I was Bruce Baumgartner's training partner in 96, and they got alphanumeric pagers in 96. So I remember when I would have to get in touch with Bruce, you'd call and say, "Hey, Bruce, this is Kerry. When are we going to train?" And the call center would type the message and send it to the pager, and then Bruce would find a way to call me. So just the advances in technology obviously are huge to it. But they took care of us with gear. They took care of us with accessories, and you really want for nothing once you're in that in the village and in that process. But it is pretty cool what they do and how they come up with the awards and the apparel and all the other stuff. And the Olympics, there is a commercial aspect to it, so a lot of sponsors get involved to make sure that their products are being seen. But we definitely got taken care of pretty well, and I'm sure they'll continue to do that.
So, Kerry, you've had the opportunity to participate in the Olympics as an athlete and as a coach. Compare and contrast kind of those experiences. We know you're going back again to Paris with one of your athletes, Darian Cruz, who competes out of the Lehigh Valley. Is it easier to be a coach or to be an athlete?
Yeah, that's kind of a relative term. So as a coach, you kind of oversee and make sure this is set, make sure that's set. So you may have a few more responsibilities, but the execution and the competition, it's really out of your hands. Right. As an athlete, you have a lot more resources, people that, I need to go get a massage, I need to go get a lift in, you have those things go, but then you get on the mat, and it's just you out there to, do your thing. So they both bring different opportunities. Obviously as an athlete, I want to have my own destiny so I can get out there and control what I can control and, put it on for whatever I can do. But I really, I enjoy the coaching aspect because it obviously gives you an opportunity to give back and help someone else achieve and pursue their goals. So I wouldn't say better or worse. It's just different things that they come in. And, I'm very, very fortunate to have been able to experience on both sides. And actually my first experience at the games was as a training partner. So that piece is a completely different deal where, it is 100% on serving the person that you're there for and being there for them and make sure they have everything they need. And then to come back around to the coaching side of it in a similar capacity to make sure that the athletes you serve have what they need. But then there may be a little bit more of a administrative thing, as a coach where I have to go make sure these credentials are set or this time is reserved and things like that. So they definitely bring different things to the table, but it's just, like I said, I'm very blessed to have been able to experience it in different capacities.
So for the casual listener or for the casual fan of wrestling, right? They may not necessarily notice the difference in styles of wrestling. And I know most of the Olympians who go on to wrestle, which is freestyle, wrestle collegiately as folk style. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the two styles?
Yeah, so they're very similar. Folk style and freestyle very similar. Really, the biggest difference is the scoring. You in a folk style match, you would get a takedown, and then you get an escape, and you get a reversal. And those are things that you look for. In freestyle, you get a takedown, you get an escape. You don't really get rewarded for an escape. You can get a reversal. In folk style, it's 2 points. Freestyle, it's 1 point. But it's really the biggest way to kind of explain it is, freestyle is much more free, where you don't have to exhibit as much control. So in a folk style match, when you get back exposure, you get your opponent, you have to hold them there for 2 to 5 seconds to get extra points, depending on high school or college level. In freestyle, all you have to do is to break that 90-degree plane to get exposure. So, you could be executing a technique and roll over your back, and you could give up points, even though it's your execution, your technique. Another big difference is the out of bounds, where in folk style, there's really no penalty for going out of bounds. In freestyle and international styles, if you under attack, if you go out of bounds under attack, you can give up a point. If you step out of bounds while you're attacking and your opponent doesn't go out of bounds, you can give up a point. So, that's one of the big things that causes a lot of people that don't know freestyle say, wait, what happened? How do you get a point? It's like, well, he stepped out of bounds, or they pushed him out, things like that. So the periods are a little bit different. Folk style matches are 3 periods, with college being 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. In the international style, it's 2 3-minute periods. And one of the big difference in periods, in folk style, after the period's over, you go to the next period, you kind of get started. In freestyle, there's a 30-second break. So you get to go back to your corner and you talk to your coaches, and it's something that's pretty good. I mean, if their match is going really well, you can go in and, continue this strategy. If it's not going well, you have an opportunity to make adjustments and really just try to get the athlete to focus on the next thing. So those are a few of the differences. The wrestling itself, takedowns, counter offense, it's very similar, but the more scoring opportunities with less control is probably the biggest difference, without going too far into it. But I think that's really the biggest thing you'll see is, the out of bounds and the difference in points and the difference in periods are probably the biggest things you'll notice as a difference.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot more action in the freestyle, and matches can change a lot quicker in freestyle. A takedown and back exposure can really change the nature of the match, versus in folk style, where it's where you wrestle on the mat a lot more, and so there's a lot more control.
I
want to talk about your coaching experience. So I mentioned Stanford and Maryland. You turned both of those programs around. You brought them into the top 20 for each of them. Multiple Coaches of the Year awards at each of those institutions. You've also had experience coaching at the training centers, right? Out in California and now here in the Lehigh Valley. How is coaching at a training center different than coaching collegiately?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and what I'd say the easiest thing is coaching, with the senior level athletes. It's you're working with professionals. Most of them are postgraduate, even though we'll have some younger guys, undergrads and high school kids that'll come to our open workouts and such. But they're adults, they're professionals, and you shouldn't have to remind them, hey, you're doing this. This is your passion, but it's also your job, right? So, you show up on time, you work hard, you have goals, we have expectations that you want to accomplish. And I think that's really the biggest difference between the two. They have a lot more freedom and flexibility. So as a coach, you set the plan, you execute the plan, but we're together a couple hours a day in your time away. Similar to anything else, your time away, you have to make the right decisions, but it's not a situation where, in the collegiate space specifically, where they have to go to class and have to do study hall and they have to do other things around campus. They're focused on their training primarily, Now, for us, we'll have other components. We have a personal and professional development component, and we have a community service and engagement component. So we make sure that our athletes aren't just, coming to practice and going home, but, the idea of what they need to do is really focused on maximizing their opportunities while they're competing, giving back to the community, but also preparing for life after wrestling. And that's what we focus on. But it's a lot more on them to be controlled and responsible than it is in the collegiate space, where they've got academic eligibility, they've got classes they have to be in every day, they have things that really define and keep their days locked up 10, 12 hours a day, where this opportunity they have a little more freedom and flexibility to do other things, as well as the expectations that we have. But like I said, on a professional level, these are adults. They understand that, hey, I've got to get up and get to practice and do the things I need to do. And if they don't do it, there's conversations. But we're very fortunate that the athletes that I've had have been really conscientious and committed to doing the things they need to do to be the best they can be.
Kerry, one of the things I'm really interested about the sport of wrestling is, so if you think about baseball, right, the backup second baseman doesn't have to really interact with the starting second baseman, or the backup center on a football team doesn't have to interact with the starting center on the team. But in order to get better in wrestling, you need teammates to push you, right? You need that backup to not only try to make you better as a wrestler, but then also they want to improve as themselves to take your spot. So talk a little bit about coaching that teammate mindset and kind of the concept of sacrificing for others so that you both can get better.
Yeah. And I think, I can give a ton of examples. One of the most recent examples, if you look at it at Penn State, so Nick Lee and Zane Rutherford had to wrestle off for the Olympic spot to see who was going to represent Team USA. So you've got teammates, you've got training partners. Last year, they both were on the world team, Nick at 65 kilos, Zane at 70 kilos. So training together every day. And then they had to face each other, see who's going to go to the games. After Zane won the wrestle off at the Olympic qualifier, he took Nick Lee as his training partner over to the qualifier to get the weight qualified. And Nick was there to serve him. So that idea is that, hey, we're going to train, we're going to make each other better. If we get to compete, may the best person win. And then afterwards, let's go out and let's get a gold medal for Team USA. And, that's the mindset. And internationally in the college space, you want to be the person that goes out there and puts the school name across your chest when you compete. But if not, you want to make sure that the school has someone that can perform at a high level. So that is really something it's very unique to wrestling. The next man up. If you go back in history, Kenny Monday was the first Black Olympic champion and just an icon in our sport. For him to make the Olympic team, he had to beat Dave Schultz. Dave Schultz is returning world champ, Olympic champ in '84. And after Kenny won the gold, you'll see a video of Dave Schultz putting Kenny on his shoulders and running him around the arena, celebrating Kenny's gold medal. That's just something you don't see very often in sports, but in wrestling, it's something that next person up really can help that first person to do a great job and celebrate. And, it's kind of one of those things where, when we win as a team, everybody gets a ring. And so you don't think about it so much in individual sports, but yeah, it takes a village, it takes a team behind the team. So there are really opportunities to maximize that. And it's, when we're out there competing, I'm going to do my best to take you down, but in preparation, if you're the guy, I'm going to do my best to help you be the best you can for Team USA or for our college or for our high school, just to make sure that we have that. And then when I get the opportunity to challenge you again, watch out, because I'm coming.
Kerry, talk about the state of wrestling globally, the state of wrestling in the United States on the collegiate level. You see the addition of women's wrestling has become more prominent. More schools are adding it. You've seen a number of schools, right, where the trend was, we're dropping our wrestling program. Now it seems like the trend is, I've seen a number of schools add wrestling. It seems like the sport of wrestling is experienced a renaissance as of late.
Yeah, we definitely are. You never want to sit on your laurels.
Right.
People, a lot of people may forget, just over 10 years ago, wrestling was on the chopping block from the Olympic program. And I believe everything happens for a reason. And one of the things that really helped this, renaissance, if you will, with our sport is that experience, because wrestling at the international level and, maybe at the collegiate level a little bit, we got a little complacent. Just, hey, we're the oldest and greatest sport, right? So that in itself, it's going to lend the opportunity to, we're going to always be around. And then when you get that scare of like, wait a minute, we may not be in the Olympics, that brought all the major wrestling people across the world together for this fight. And we survived. And, from that, there were a lot of things that were put in place to really just elevate the sport. And we're seeing the benefits of that. Obviously, you mentioned the growth of women's wrestling. That was a huge proponent of it. But just bringing people together to recognize and acknowledge that we can't just be stagnant. We have to continue to evolve. We have to continue to promote. We have to continue to do what we can to showcase this great sport, but not just because it's a great sport, but the people that are in and what the lessons that, all the things about the sport, not just, just go watch a wrestling match and you'll see, because some people may not look at it that way. So our international wrestling has grown. Our women's wrestling, is a big part of that. Collegiately, at every level, there's growth and development. The Division II, Division III, NAIA schools are adding at a faster rate than Division I, but especially like we talked about with the women's wrestling is starting to grow momentum on the Division I scale. And, they've got an NCAA championship plan to start in 2025, 26. So have an NCAA championship for women's wrestling. So it is a great time for the sport. But like I say, we can't be complacent. We can't sit back and say, wrestling's doing great right now, let's just sit back and enjoy it. We have to continue to innovate and make sure that, it becomes everything that it can be every day, every opportunity. So the growth of women, the growth of wrestling at smaller schools, the growth of wrestling at HBCUs is another initiative that's going on right now. The U.S. Wrestling Foundation is working on a lot of campaigns and promotions, USA Wrestling, the NCAA, the NWCA. So there's just so many people that are engaged, Wrestle Like a Girl, to help the sport continue to thrive, not just survive. And I think maybe that was the case a few years ago, where it's like, hey, we can just survive and we have wrestling on campus. So let's just, let's not make any noise, just kind of do our thing. And it's like, well, no, you have to make yourself a valuable member of that campus community. You have to make yourself a valuable member of the international community. And that's something that I think has been a very intentional effort over the last few years. And that's why our sport is growing and continues to grow at a high level. But we've got a lot of work to do to keep it going that way. And we want to get more Division I programs. We want to get more men's programs, more women's programs. We want to get wrestling reinstated in HBCUs. We want to make sure that we're helping at every level, growing wrestling at the high school level, growing wrestling at the college level, international level, and just continue to do it because this sport is has done so much for so many that we want to make sure that the future generations have similar opportunities.
Well, you talked about saving Olympic wrestling, right? You would never think that you'd see some of those coaches standing on the same stage with each other, right? Because they were such fierce competitors, right? Someone standing next to Dan Gable, right? But that fight kind of brought people from all around the world together. The next thing that I'd love to see, and this is a fan talking to you who has a platform and influence on this, is we need to go to 10 weight classes for the Olympics. We need to get more of the talent that ends up staying at home because they didn't qualify on one of those weight classes, more of that talent on display. So anything you could do to bring 10 weight classes to Olympic wrestling would be greatly appreciated.
I'm definitely working on it. And it's really amazing because I mentioned earlier, the Olympics has become more commercial and fans and viewers and things like that. So, all the traditional Olympic sports are, holding steady ground, but they're bringing new sports in, and which is great, right? Another opportunity to showcase different athletes and different disciplines. So with every new sport that comes in, there's not, you don't want to have 100,000 people at the games and it just have it be unmanageable. So they try to keep it at a manageable number. I don't know who determines what that number is, but there is a limit that they put on. So with every new discipline or new sport that comes in, they have to make room. So hopefully as, our wrestling renaissance continues, they will see and recognize that, and it wasn't that long ago. It was, 96 was 10 weight classes for men's freestyle and Greco-Roman. With the addition of women, they wanted to normalize it and manage it. And so now there's 6, 6, and 6. And so the idea is let's get to 10, 10, 10 and just continue to spread the opportunity for all that come in. I think that just the international wrestling community recognizes it, the local wrestling community is recognizing it, just to get the IOC to recognize that, 10 weight classes for all 3 disciplines is something that is very easy to do with, some smart people putting their heads together and make sure it doesn't overcrowd the games, but still gives as much opportunity as possible for as many people that can to participate. So my vote is in. Any influence that I have, I definitely will use it. And, fortunately, USA has a pretty good standing on the international stage. So we continue to push it, hopefully not too long. 2028, the games are in LA. So that'd be a great time to introduce 10 weight classes at home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kerry, I know your faith is important to you. Can you talk a little bit about how you see kind of coaching as one of the ways that you minister to others, and how that's made you a better coach?
Yeah, no, it's everything. And, I said earlier, I was very fortunate that God has given me the opportunity to have some amazing people in my life to help me do what I've done at every level. And I just try to live, it's live by example, teach by example, and I'm always willing and able to have a conversation to discuss how my faith affects me, or, questions about faith. But the biggest thing I can do is just live in a certain way that people, I've heard a saying, if somebody heard something negative about you, they should be shocked if you're living a certain way, right? It's like, oh no, there's no way that Kerry did that, right? And part of my faith walk is that when people hear things that I'm doing, it's, oh yeah, I know Kerry's going to be making the right choices. I know Kerry's going to be, leading a certain way. And then my athletes and the people that I interact with, they can see that, and they can, not necessarily emulate it, but just understand that this is the path that I walk, and this is how it's worked out for me. So being able to have that as a foundation, and then really being able to use, I'd say the foundation of my existence is service, and that's really founded in my faith. Right? I wanted to give back to the sport that's given me so much. I wanted to be able to help the people that I've been, having the opportunity to be able to work with. And so my service to others is really a strong connection to my faith, because that's really what, that's what Jesus did. He came to serve. And, when he set an example that for all of us to follow, then it's easy for us to know, okay, this is what we should be doing, and set the example for the next. So in coaching and any of my professional aspirations, if I can serve and help one person, and that person goes on and helps another person, and it continues to go down, that's really what it's all about when it all comes down to it.
This is the People of Penn State. I'm Paul Clifford. I'm joined today by the 1997 Hodge Trophy winner and 2-time Olympian, Kerry McCoy. Kerry, we like to have a good time at the end of each program where I throw some quick hitter questions at you. So if you're down for that, I'm gonna ask you some quick hitter ones.
All right, no problem.
All right, your favorite class at Penn State?
Favorite class. So I would say I think about all the big lecture halls that we had, and we had it's gonna sound funny, but it was like one of the, as athletes, right? We got a credit for being an athlete, but then we had a physical ed requirement. And I had a class called Fitness for Life. And it was just one of those things that just taught basic stuff about, taking care of yourself. And as athletes, we have a pretty strict regimen on what we need to do to stay healthy and fit. But to be in this class with, non-athletes and other students, but just to learn different things about taking care of yourself, taking care of your body, taking care of your mind, was something I really enjoyed. And it was a, 1.5 credit elective that I had in my 3rd or 4th year, but really enjoyed that one. But I enjoyed a lot of my classes. So, but probably that's the one that popped up when you asked that question.
When you think about your favorite Penn State moment, what immediately comes to mind?
So it's all the competition that we had, all those things play in, dual meets. But so my freshman year, I was wrestling 190, and anyone that knows, I was cutting a little bit of weight, right? So managing my weight was a big part of my freshman experience. And so after the NCAA tournament, I lost. I was knocked out of the tournament, and we went to a social gathering with our alumni. And again, I said earlier, I'm a sore loser. I didn't want to be around people. I just wanted to, sit in my room and sulk and just be. But we went to this event, and hanging around, talking to people. Hey, good job, all that. Just the traditional stuff. And I didn't really want to hear it, but sitting there, and then after the meal, they served dessert, and they put this piece of chocolate cream pie in front of me, and I just remember like all the cares of the world just disappeared, and I had this chocolate cream pie, and everything was going to be okay. And so that sticks out. And then for the following few years, every time we had a picnic or an event, somebody would bring chocolate cream pie, and most of the time it was Connie and Monty Christensen, some of our alumni and super supporters of the program. But so that chocolate cream pie story is something that really stays with me through my experience as a Penn Stater.
How about, you've traveled all over the world with the sport. What's your most unusual "we are" moment, where someone recognized you as a Penn Stater and yelled out "we are," or you saw another Penn Stater and you got them with it?
Yeah, it's really cool because I've had a lot of those. It's you hear about, and as you know, the Alumni Association, the number of people that are connected to Penn State across the world, and being able to travel the world and actually see it. I mean, I don't think I've been anywhere in my 30 plus years of traveling around the world that I haven't run into or seen a Penn Stater. So I remember one time, I can't remember if it was I think it was in Germany, going through the airport in Germany. And, when we travel in Team USA, usually wearing Team USA stuff. But I saw someone that had a PSU, and it was just one of those, you kind of say it in like, all right, let's see if you don't want to, you're in an international airport, so you don't want too much to be, you don't want too much attention, but, kind of, and I walked past and I was like, "We are," just kind of subtly. And the person turned around and screamed out, "Penn State." And I was like, didn't expect it to be that kind of a response. And yeah, so that was probably one. I think it was in Germany, but just traveling through an airport, just, a quick one, thinking, oh, it's not going to be anything major. And this guy had a huge explosion of energy. So that was pretty cool.
That's great. And finally, your favorite Penn State sport besides wrestling?
My favorite sport besides wrestling. Oh man, that's one. I would say probably volleyball. I remember my freshman year, and this is, we used to go over, and this is back, before they went to rally scoring, so they have a side out. So the volleyball games were long, 2.5 hours, and so we got to play. But I remember we were so excited not to just watch the game, but we go over there to get to warm up. And I'm sure you remember Leanne Kling was the star on the team back then, and we used to go, and she would do warm-ups. She'd hit the ball so hard it would bounce off the floor and go up and almost hit the scoreboard that was 50 feet high. And so we just go to watch Leanne and the other the girls on the team, women on the team, that would warm up and just crush the ball and had so much power and explosiveness. So those are things that have burned in my brain from my freshman year. So I'd say we definitely enjoyed watching the volleyball team. And Coach Russ Rose, he's an awesome guy, and had great relationships with him. And we shared, obviously shared rec hall with volleyball, and we'd spend a lot of time there. So I think I'd say volleyball was definitely one of the sports that I really connected with on every level, from coaches to athletes to being a fan.
Excellent. Well, Kerry, we've taken enough of your time. You've been so generous with it. Thank you for joining us on the People of Penn State.
Paul, it's always a pleasure. I really appreciate you spending some time with me and let me share a little bit about my experience. And I'm honored to be able to participate.